I would like to introduce Mr. Tybo, and I'm not talking about the workout, the cardio workout with Billy Banks. I'm not talking about Tybo Nevada. I'm not talking about a typo. I'm talking about Tybo audio.
Everything around me was just like chaotic, and I was like, man, I got to be the person to make that change, make that difference. So one day when I was 16 years old, I walked to this college I've never been to, and I just told him, I said, I want to go to school here. Yeah, that was the day my life changed.
I know there's a change because you're a testimony to that.
It took a lot of pressure, a lot of darkness, the type of environment it takes to make a diamond. It's not a pretty environment. So ever since I touched down in Atlanta, I've been like, yo, let me prove my worth, and I know you'll pay me. Because I've been doing it like that since I was 17. I show up at any studio, fix everything. I was like, bro, I just made $500 in 2 hours.
Wow.
And I'm like 17, 18 at the time.
Well, you said all of your clients are like your mentors.
Majority of my clients are my mentors, actually. Just because you love something, love learning about something, doesn't mean you need to turn it into a career.
Whew. Welcome to Alienized Photos Industry Talk with your host, photographer Jackson, Steve Jackson of Alienized Photos Media. And to my right, I have a special guest, a production specialist. And yeah, look at the studio. Creator Clubhouse here in Atlanta, Georgia. Fresh off the podcast Summit 2026 or 26. And I would like to introduce Mr. Tybo. And I'm not talking about the workout, the cardio workout with Billy Banks. I'm not talking about Tybo Nevada. I'm not talking about a typo. I'm talking about Tybo audio. How you doing, my brother?
I'm feeling good, brother. Blessed to be here. I'm surprised you know about Tybo, Nevada. Nobody knows about that.
Hey,
you did your research.
I did my research.
Yes, sir.
So I did a little brief introduction, but nobody could do it better than yourself. So introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, no, my name is Tybo. I set up studios for entrepreneurs and creators, and I specialize in audio, lighting, and video.
I would say, which one is your favorite?
Probably audio, because that's where I started off. I have a deep love for music. So probably audio.
Okay. So you say you have a deep love for music. Do you used to do music, produce, or more like an artist?
I've done every aspect of audio as far as like I've been a rapper, I've been a producer, I made beats, I play piano, I've taken vocal lessons, I've been on tours, I've mixed and master. Anything you can think of as far as audio, I've gotten paid a lot of money to do it at some point. So yeah.
Okay. So you said you've been a performing artist, recording artist. Where can we find some of this music?
You can look up Tybo Audio on all platforms. You're going to see all of my older music. I haven't released music in like 6 or 7 years, but yeah, I did like 55 songs. I dropped like 5 different projects, all produced by me, all written, recorded, everything done by me.
That is amazing. I used to be a recording artist myself. That's actually how I got into production and being a photographer. I would get off stage, performing or hosting, record other artists on my iPhone. I'm like, let me invest in the camera.
Yep.
So when I did that, start studying and practicing, and then kind of left the music scene, music and poetry. Can't forget the poetry. And just never looked back.
That's dope.
Here now, I'm in front of the camera, but I'm usually behind the camera. So
It's good to have that balance.
oh, yeah. So who's your favorite artist?
Favorite artist of all time had to be Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
If I had to choose like rap music, like my favorite rapper, I had to go Kendrick Lamar. But yeah, and then favorite band, I always tell people it's a hard choice between either Earth, Wind, and Fire or a band called Steely Dan. They both are like the top bands for me. So
Okay.
yeah, those are
I
my
love
favorites.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. And then to repeat, I like Michael Jackson and Tupac.
Oh, fire,
I say,
fire.
since my name is Steve Jackson, I say Michael Jackson is my uncle. And then Tupac is my father.
Heck yeah.
Yep. So even jumping back to the early days, I know, listen to your presentation yesterday. You say you dropped out of school in middle school, like 6th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade was my last official grade in like public school.
Wow.
And then I did like 4 or 5 years, no school. I was just in the streets, kind of roaming around doing my own thing. And then finally at 16, I decided to get my GED and go to college. And I ended up being in this scholarship program that paid for my college education from 16 to 21.
Wow.
So I took as many classes as I could. I learned as many things as I could in that time and got 2 degrees and been doing this ever since.
So going back to that 6th grade, what made you drop out? What happened around that time?
So I was going through a lot of family stuff. My dad went to prison when I was 10 years old. And by the time he was released, he was super institutionalized. And my mom was dealing with homelessness and drug addiction and all of these things. So just my family life was just chaotic at that time. So school just wasn't in the picture for me. So.
Oh, wow. And then what influenced you to go back to school?
Seeing the people around me, like the situations I was in, I lost a couple friends, my dad in and out of jail, my brother in and out of jail, like just everything around me was just like chaotic. And I was like, man, I got to be the person to make that change, make that difference. So one day when I was 16 years old, I decided to just, literally I was sitting in this house and I turned this TV off. I was just sitting there watching TV. Wow. I turned it off and I was like, yo, this is the day. And I walked to this college I've never been to. And I just told them, I said, I want to go to school here. And the funny thing is, like, I was in the wrong building. I was in, like, the sports building. They were like, you need to go to administration and sign up and do all this. But, yeah, that was the day my life changed.
I love that for you. And I know so many countless people going through it, especially young ones, lost their parents or just struggling to figure a way out, just being in the streets, hanging around the same people. I know there's a change because you're a testimony to that. Is there a message you can share for a younger person that's going through something similar?
Yeah, I say pressure makes diamonds. So, you know, you guys see this this finished product here, but it took a lot of pressure, a lot of darkness, you know, the type of environment it takes to make a diamond, you know, it's not a pretty environment. So, but then when you get that diamond, it's shining, it's bright. So it's worth it in the end. So just don't give up.
Don't give up. I'm a firm believer in that. You know, take breaks, take pauses, but don't give up. Never, never stop. I love that. And we're sitting in one of the studios you built or helped build, create. Like, what was the process behind it, and how long did it take, roughly?
So I met Dave 2 years ago at a mastermind. It was one of his masterminds. Dave does these masterminds, I want to say maybe like once or twice a year. Okay. He gets all the biggest podcasters, biggest entertainers in Atlanta all in one space, and we just politic, we connect, we, you know, share thoughts and ideas. But I got invited to one of these masterminds. I never heard of David Chan's before, never seen the Social Proof podcast, but somebody invited me to this mastermind, and I walked in. It was this big old mansion, actually owned by one of my clients, Neo. Shout out Neo.
Shout out Neo.
So I walked in, and it was a bunch of people that I already worked with, and I didn't know it was David Chan's event, but essentially two of my clients stood up and they're like, yo, everybody in this room needs to connect with this guy, Tybo. He's the dopest producer. He's the dopest engineer. Like, you guys got to get with this guy. Yeah. And so David took notice. He was like, wait a minute, I've never even seen that dude. And he's at my mastermind. So he walked up to me. He's like, hey, bro, like, just want to introduce myself. He's like, you got to come by my studio. And I was like, bet, I'll come by whenever. He was like, can you stop by tomorrow? And I was like, yep, let's do it. So I came here the next day. It was like 10 a.m. And I walked in and I just seen everything. And I was like, you guys can make some crazy upgrades to this space, because you guys already have, like, they had this room built out. They had the back room, but it just wasn't really like cohesive. Everything wasn't like optimized. So I pulled Dave to the side and said, yo, let me get you right. Like, let me fully utilize this building to its like fullest potential, you know? So he was like, all right, well, how much is it going to cost? And I was like, this stuff ain't cheap, you know? So he already spent thousands of dollars in this building. So he was like, all right. So I told him, I was like, yo, let's do this, let's do that. So now all of the rooms are connected. You can live stream. You can sit in this room and do an interview, and everybody can see you in the event room. And, you know, you could use this room as a green room now, because we used to do events, but people always had to be in there to watch. Now you can sit in here and watch the event from here. So turning this place to like a full-fledged production house, like, that was my goal. So, and now we're here.
Yeah, it is. I've been here a few days this week, and I'm like amazed. So just to see it, I'm like, wow. And the creator behind it, it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
So what about this panel wall? Like, how long did it take to build? Like, what's behind the wall?
So this was actually drywall a couple months ago. There's a guy, Walls of Georgia. I might be saying it wrong, but we can try to find it, put it on screen.
I think David Shans did mention him too, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's Walls of Georgia. He did the one in the office. He did another wall, but he did this one. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of visible light on camera, because some of the things I talk about, like luminance values, sometimes when you have the brightest thing on screen, people's eyes automatically go towards it. Right. So me personally, I don't like to put a lot of visible lights in the background of my shots. But
can we turn the lights down?
No. You good. No, you good. But what I will say is the wow factor. Anytime somebody comes in this room, they're immediately wowed. So it's like this trade-off of like,
I think it's the colors,
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
No, but honestly, the look in here when you post it, it looks good. So
It
like,
does.
yeah, you can't deny that.
Yeah, that is true. Okay. So for someone that's just starting out that doesn't have a big budget, still using an iPhone, what are some things you would recommend for them?
Study photography, study composition, study the rule of thirds. Some of the stuff that we went over, like honestly, all of those things translate right over to a iPhone or a professional camera. Like, and if you take those same types of just like frameworks, you can transfer them to any camera. I can take a Canon, Sony, Blackmagic, whatever, and I can apply those same principles, and it's still gonna look professional. It's gonna still look cinematic. So just study, exposure, lighting, all of those things, and you can make an iPhone look incredible.
Yeah, I've definitely done it too. I shot a podcast, 3 iPhones for someone that didn't have a budget, but they had multiple iPhones. I'm like, oh, just use this.
Mm-hmm.
So, what were some of the first tools and equipment you had starting out?
Microphone. I bought my first microphone super young, and I forget what it was. I want to say it was a Shure or something, but it was like one of the condenser microphones. So I started off with audio. First light I bought must have been a Godox, one of those little Amazon Godox lights.
Okay.
And then video, my first camera was a Sony like A6100. It didn't even do video. Or like you could record a video, but it was like 30 seconds. It was like really bad for video, but it was good for photos. So I learned. Those were like the three first tools I ever invested in.
Okay. What about some of the tools you use or that you love right now?
We use a lot of FX30s. I'm a Sony shooter. Ever since I bought my first Sony, I've been Sony gang, but I use a lot of Blackmagics. I love Nikon. Honestly, it's more about the lens and the lighting for me. Like the camera body, I could switch that out, and most people, 9 out of 10 people, wouldn't even be able to recognize. Like, oh, this is a Nikon versus a Sony versus a Blackmagic. It's because the lighting and the lens is really pristine.
I love that. I know people get caught up in the names and all that. It's just a tool.
Absolutely.
I mean, same with AI, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. It's just a tool.
Whoa. Now those aren't all the same. Now, like those, I use them all differently. Like I got Claude.
Break it down for me. Break it down.
Yeah, we ain't gonna go too deep in AI, but like Gemini, I feel like I'd use Gemini just for like photos, the Nano Banana, and the thing is, like, I think of Google as an infrastructure that's been around for so long that they have Google search engine, they have things that ChatGPT or OpenAI just doesn't have access to, versus Claude, their research tools, like each one of them has a very specific like strong set, and I feel like utilizing each one. But yeah, they're all a tool at the end of the day, like you were saying.
That's right. And I mean, to go even deeper, I know Google has some, investments in Claude and Anthropic.
Yep.
But even talking about AI, where do you see the future of it for like production and recording and just the whole industry like 5 years from now?
I'm actually AI. I mean, I'm an AI person right now. No, I'm kidding. No, the future for AI is going to be like, it's like the internet. I tell people, like, people back in the day were looking at phone books and being like, oh, I can put my stuff in the phone book, and then the internet came out, and then phone books got wiped away. So I feel like AI is almost like the new internet. You know what I mean? Like,
I like that.
So yeah, you got to utilize AI. I feel like all of these big platforms, Facebook, Instagram, like they're all integrating AI. So it's like, why aren't you integrating AI into some sort of workflow for you? I mean, I don't use like voice, I don't use video, I don't use anything like that for my content, but on the back end of stuff, I'm using ideas, scripting, all of that stuff. So
okay. For people that want to shy away from AI, it's mostly like the older generation. Is there words that you would love to say to them?
Just adopt it slowly. I mean, it's one of those tools where you can't really avoid it. Like I said, like if you have a phone, if you have a computer, all of the companies are starting to utilize AI. So it's like, I think subconsciously you might be like, oh, I don't want to use AI, but it's like you kind of are low key. Like if you use iPhone or if you use like any of these platforms. So I feel like it's kind of inevitable. It's almost like trying not to use electricity. You know what I mean? It's like at some point you're going to use some electricity,
Speaking about electricity, I know they say it's consuming the water. I know people get like big on that, like it's affecting the water system, it's affecting this, it's affecting that, all the towers, this and this and that.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation. One dude, I think his name is Todd Hanks. I may be getting his name wrong, but he's a big YouTuber, and he was on the Science Channel, and he's done a lot. He's a white guy with glasses, but he did a very good breakdown of water consumption, electricity consumption, and one thing he pointed out is that cornfields actually are like 10 times or 100 times worse than AI built for water consumption and electricity. And then the thing is, what's crazy, as he pointed out, is we're using like 10 times as much water for corn. And then what we do is we turn around and just burn it. So it's like, if we really wanted to like crack down on the environment and actually make some differences, we would go to some of these big old cornfields versus like these AI data centers. And I'm not saying these AI data centers aren't bad, but I'm saying there are other things that are way bigger in proportion that are ruining the planet and water and all of this stuff. So I feel like we need people like him who are pointing this out and being like, don't fall for the propaganda and don't fall for like the clickbaity kind of stuff, and actually trust somebody who knows what they're talking about. So
Yeah. So even speaking about corn, I know it doesn't break down in your body very well, and I think you're vegan, right?
yeah, I'm vegan.
So is corn a vegetable that you should consume?
It's mainly the cellulose. I think is you can't break it down. But the thing is, like the inner parts of a corn, like it still has starch, it still has carbohydrate. So it's one of those trade-offs. Like if you have if you have pre-existing health conditions, corn may not be good for, like if you have digestive issues, like that cellulose and that fiber, it might cause some issues. But if you have a healthy digestive system, piece of corn on the cob, cornbread, that ain't gonna mess you up.
And it's about that time of the year to start eating that stuff, huh?
It's 4th of July, bro. We gonna eat the cookout tonight.
Independence Day. So even talking about like health is wealth. When was that transition to like when you wanted to start a business and start making money? When was that time period?
I've always been a hustler, like always. Like my mom told me this story. She was like, yeah, when you were 10 years old, you were in the front yard and you had all your toys lined up. And I came outside and I was like, why are you putting your toys in the lawn like this? And she was like, you said you were going to do a yard sale and sell all your toys because you wanted to make money.
I love that.
So, but my dad was an entrepreneur. My dad had 3 jobs. He detailed boats for rich white men. He drove a taxi on the side, and he was doing some stuff on, making some extra money, So he was always a hustler. So I always watched my dad be an entrepreneur. He actually taught me math at a very young age, like 2 or 3 years old, by counting money. So like, I think that was like the early stages of me just being a entrepreneur, hustler. I used to go to school and I'd buy a box of candy bars and try to sell them, cans of soda, whatever, like any way I could make money. Like I remember when I was like 14, there was a big festival. We ended up taking Kool-Aid, filling them up with Kool-Aid and taking like a splash of alcohol and putting it in the water bottle and selling them for $5 each. That was the first time I ever made like a good chunk of money. I remember I spent $100 on like the alcohol, the Kool-Aid, the bottles, everything. Yeah. And I made like $800.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, I just took $100 and I went outside for a day and I made like 800. I was like, I made 700. That was like the moment I was like, yes, I love this feeling. I need to do this. So I did that, illegal stuff. But then by the time I was 16, 17, got into college, people were like, yo, you can get paid to do this stuff. And that was the moment I was like, bet. So I remember my first corporate job, showed up at like 7 a.m. I set up some microphones, left by 9 o'clock, $500. I was like, bro, I just made $500 in 2 hours.
Wow.
And I'm like 17, 18 at the time. People around me is not making that kind of money. Yeah. And I was just like, bro, this is it. So like just hit the ground running. Always like, yo, you need this, you need that. And for me, what it taught me is provide as much value and the pay will come. And a lot of people do it backwards, especially in Atlanta. Like I've met a lot of people, they're like, yeah, pay me first and then I'll give you the value. Ever since I touched down in Atlanta, I've been like, yo, let me prove my worth and I know you'll pay me. Because I've been doing it like that since I was 17. I show up at any studio, fix everything. They didn't even ask. And they'd be like, bro, what the heck? Like this dude came in and like we had this problem, and he literally fixed it. My engineers who've been on payroll for a whole year didn't even fix this. This dude didn't even charge me anything. He fixed it. So having that kind of work ethic, I feel like that's what takes you further in this industry.
Whew. Yeah, I had a similar story when I was young, maybe like 4 or 5. Used to had like the penny wrappers. So I just had a whole pile of pennies, put them in the wrappers. My mother's like, "Oh, you could do that. You like a bank teller. You count the pennies and this and that." End up getting a machine. So that was my early days where I'm like, I just love money or counting money, like counting money. But I didn't know entrepreneurship till I got older, and like I always been a writer first, and start writing music, start writing poetry, and it all just turned to what I am today.
That's fire.
And then you said when you touched down to Atlanta, where were you before?
I'm from Seattle, Washington. So
Seattle,
I
Washington.
was pretty much raised in Seattle, Washington. I was born in Texas, strange enough, but I didn't spend any time there. So yeah, raised in Seattle, Washington. And then during 2021, during the pandemic, all of the studios and all the productions in Seattle I was working, they pretty much shut down. Thankfully, one of the studios I worked at gave me unemployment. So I was making good money in the pandemic.
Wow.
And I was like thinking about, I was like, where should I move to? Where should I go to like start from ground, like just start from fresh? Like, and I was like, yo, Atlanta's the spot. And yeah, I moved here, and I had this thing in my mind. I was like, if I can't find work with like, because I wanted to work with entrepreneurs, rappers, I wanted to do like all the big stuff, right? I was like, if I can't do any of that, nobody wants to pay me for that, my backup plan is to work at a church, because churches will always need somebody who has good audio skills, good lighting skills, good video skills. I was like, I will find at least one church who will hire me and pay me. So that was like my backup plan. I was like, if I can't find anything, I was like, I'm just gonna walk to each church and be like, yo, I'm an audio engineer, I'm a lighting, let me help you, let me work. And funny enough, within a week of landing here, somebody called me and they're like, yo, we need a lighting guy. It's church. I said, bet, let me do it. I don't even care how much, I'll be there. I ended up working with Darius Daniels with Change Church. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're one of like the largest church. Like you think of mega churches, like Change Church is one of those. So, yeah, that was like a blessing in disguise, because I got to meet so many people through that church. And honestly, I think that was like the first connection that I made, where it was like meeting all these people, and then they realized I did audio, and then they realized I did camera, and then they were just fully utilizing everything. And then I met a bunch of people, and yeah, hit the ground running.
Wow. And did you just go by faith, or did you do like detailed research on Atlanta before coming?
I had a cousin here, and I had visited in 2019 for like maybe 2 weeks, but it wasn't like, I would never had an idea of like moving out here. Like I just came out here to visit him because I wanted to go on vacation, and he took me around, and he's a photographer. So he took me to some clubs, he showed me around, and I was just like so impressed by like how many black people were here, how many successful black people were. I was just like, yeah. And I think that planted a seed, because this is 2019. I did a podcast like 6 or 7 months later with my boss at one of the studios in Seattle. And he goes, where do you see yourself in 2 to 3 years? And I was like, honestly, I kind of want to move to Atlanta. And he goes, I lived in Atlanta and I was in the tech industry there. He's like, what do you feel like you can contribute to the tech world down there? And I was like, honestly, I feel like my understanding of all this stuff is just so deep that I was like, I feel like they need somebody who like really is deep in the rabbit hole and can like understand this stuff. Because here's the thing is like, I meet photographers and videographers who are really dope.
Yeah.
Like they know how to get the dopest shot, and like literally they'll shoot you the most cinematic stuff. But it's like, I start asking about like the little like shut or like all like just like little details, and they're like, yeah, like I know what it means, but it's like they don't really like know it. And I'm like, dang.
So what do you mean no? Because I know shutter speed.
Well, not like shutter, like even like color science, like going into like frame rate. Like there's just like little production things, like 32-bit float and matching like the kilohertz and Nyquist frequencies.
I never heard of Nyquist. What's that?
It's just like all of these little things where it's like, okay, I've been deep in the rabbit hole, the manuals, so like I know how to apply this to like production, right? Like, and this is ultimately why I ended up in the podcast space, is because videographer, like being a videographer, you're really good with the camera and framing all of that, but it's like that doesn't mean you know about syncing cameras and multi-camera angles. Like that's a whole other world.
Wow.
So like just being a videographer like doesn't mean you have all of the production skills. Like, oh, the audio and making sure like this audio cable doesn't cross any power cables, because that's how you introduce interference. So it's like I wanted to like cohesively wrap everything and be like, no, like this is how you need to look at everything. So I pretty much said that on a podcast 2019 with my boss, and pretty much manifested all of this. I told him, I was like, yeah, I just want to go out there. I want to work with all the big people and blah, blah, blah. So, and then now we're here.
Wow. So what was like the biggest production, like 20, 30 cameras, microphones? What was like the biggest production, something like that?
I mean, any arena we've worked in. I mean, we did some stuff at State Farm. We've done stuff at the Coca-Cola Roxy. We've done stuff like any venue, like big venue. We've done stuff like back home in Seattle. There's a couple venues downtown we've sold out, done shows. So any of those, yeah, it's like more than 1,000 people. Like even the podcast summit, you was there. Like those are pretty big.
Summit.
Yeah, so I did 2 of those with David Shams before I was ever on stage. So I was backstage running the production for last year and the year before that. So
Yeah, I was there. Last year I was attending. This year I'm a vendor. So it was definitely a great experience. And how long does it usually take to set up? I know it's like sometimes days before, people that don't see the work. How long does it usually take?
for the bigger ones, yeah, it's just a whole day. Like we'll show up 7 a.m. the day before, and we don't leave until like 7 p.m. And then we'll show up back again. Like it depends on what time you start. It's like a 10 a.m., 9 a.m. start. Yeah, you got to show up the day before, get everything prepped. But if it's like a noon, you could show up sometimes like 7 a.m., get it all done 4 or 5 hours. It just depends what it is.
Okay. So for people that's new to business, they usually, bill up front for the time that they're there on set or on location. Is that something that they should be factoring in, like that pre-time to set up, that pre-production, and also the time to set up?
It depends on what role you're in, right? Because if you're just like a stagehand or somebody like, yeah, hourly would probably be the better route. So you can, because if you stay over, then, you want to get paid for that time over. But honestly, for the people who like are more in the production role and overseeing stuff, I mean, it's usually just a flat rate. So that's what I typically go with, a day rate or just a project rate.
It's definitely good to know for my people that's starting out. I know a lot of beginner photographers and videographers, people that want to be in production, and then even a podcast production. I hear it all the time, and what I tell them is, charge what you're worth, charge for your time, and then also the value you're providing. Now, with that equation, they can figure out the numbers themselves, but that's kind of what I tell them.
Absolutely.
So do you have any like mentors that you work under or consult with?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So David Shan's obviously a great mentor of mine. Nehemiah Davis. Honestly, all of my clients give me some form of mentorship.
Well, you said all of your clients are like your mentors.
Honestly, they are, because I've provided so much value to them that they're like, yo, we want to pay you and provide more value to you as a person. So I've been super blessed. Like even yesterday, I'm not sure if you met Ashley Kirkwood. She was the Speak Your Way to Cash.
I was in the hot seat with Ashley yesterday.
Yeah, so like even her, like she always blessing me with wisdom and knowledge. And like I feel like all of the people that I'm around, they're just such great people. They just want to see me win. So they're like, yo, you should do this, you should try that, you should connect with this person. So like honestly, I feel like a majority of my clients are my mentors actually. But the biggest ones, I'd say David Shands, Nehemiah Davis, shout out him. And then I'm gonna say Tybo. He owns a studio called The Content Factory. That's like a person who's
here in Atlanta.
Yeah, he's here in Atlanta, but he's a really good guy. He's a voiceover. He did gospel radio for a long time. You've heard his voice all over the radio in Atlanta, but he's another great mentor. So those 3 dudes, shout out to them. They have completely transformed my life as a man. So yeah.
I've never heard that answer before. Like my clients are like my mentors, or my mentors. Like, wow, I've never heard that. So that's amazing.
I'm fortunate to work with some really dope people in Atlanta. So if I need tax advice, if I need business advice, I just connected with that trademark lawyer yesterday.
Okay,
yeah. And she's like, yeah, I work with all of your clients, so I'm gonna help you get your trademark. So it's like little things like that. It's like she's gonna pay me to set up her studio, but then I also get trademark services. It's like, how blessed is that of an opportunity?
Sounds like I need to make a move to Atlanta myself.
Absolutely. I'm gonna see you here, brother.
Okay, hey, we're gonna be around. And even going back to like Washington, so Seattle, what would you say you left behind? Like, what are the top 3 things you would say they're known for?
The cloudiness and the raininess and the gloomy depression. Seattle is known for being just rainy and gray all the time. We get 2 months in the summer where it's really nice out. It'd be like 80 degrees, clear skies. And then from like September all the way back to like May, it's just rainy and gray. So like, I don't miss that. I went through a lot of seasonal affect disorder. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So I did that on the presentation where I talked about it's called seasonal affect disorders. It stands for SAD.
Sad. Okay.
But it's when you don't get enough vitamin D and you don't get enough sunlight, you actually can get depression because you're not getting the hormones and you're not, because like vitamin D is really important to all of your like vital organs and how your body's like hormone regulation, all of that. So I don't think I was up in Seattle. I just wasn't getting outside enough. I wasn't getting enough sunlight, and yeah, just it's sadness, depression. But as soon as I moved out here, got in the sun, this Atlanta heat, bro, all that stuff went away. I'm like, I'm outside now. So
Yeah, that's good. You look vibrant too.
Exactly.
So that's actually a good segue to my questions I like to ask creatives. Thinking about your creative process as a weather forecast, how would you explain that? Your creative process as a weather forecast.
It's very much like Atlanta or Seattle. Like at 1 minute, it could be really clear out, and then 10 minutes later, a gray cloud rolls in. So it's almost like you can't plan for something. Like you almost got to just go with the flow, and you got to be prepared for things to shift and change. Sometimes, like I explain it almost like cooking, right? Like I have these ideas, and I keep some of them on the main burner because I gotta like cook them, and I gotta like stir fry, make sure that it's getting cooked.
Yeah.
But then other ideas, sometimes I push them to the back burner and I put the pot on and I let it simmer on low. So it's like, I got this ebook that I've been working on for like 4 months. I was going hard, and then I had to put a pause on that. I had to put it on the back burner because I had to do some other stuff, push it to the front. So it's like, that's how creatively I move, is like, okay, what is priority? What needs to go on that main big eye on the stove where you like cooking up versus what can go in the back on the back burner and kind of just simmer.
I mean, speaking about cooking up, what are some things you're going to enjoy later on?
I got reservations for a Filipino restaurant. I'm Filipino, so there's a Filipino restaurant down the street, and me and my family like to go there. So treat my family to dinner tonight, and yeah.
Okay. Definitely. What about your favorite dishes?
I'm Filipino, so anything with rice, honestly, curries, stir fries, anything rice based, I would tear it up. So
Okay. So anybody else trying to, get in, mentor, intern, have a talk? You do coffee?
I do tea. Sometimes I do coffee, but yeah, a little bit.
A little wink if anybody want to know. Curries, stir fry with the rice, and tea. Yeah. So what's your favorite tea?
I drink a tea called pu'er. It's Puerh, and it's a fermented tea. So a lot of people don't know this about tea, but all tea comes from one plant.
One plant, okay.
So if it doesn't come from this one plant, it technically isn't even a tea. And I think it's called a Camellia sinensis plant, right? That's where you get green tea, black tea, white tea. All of the teas come from this one plant. When you grow this one plant, Camellia sinensis, you can chop down the leaves, and depending on what you do with those leaves, you can get green tea, you can get black tea, you can get oolong tea, but if it doesn't come from that plant, it's actually just a herbal water. Like it's a herbal tea, but it's not even a tea really. You can't call it a tea. So like when you drink mint tea or any other tea, if it doesn't come from that plant, it's not really a tea. But since they take the Camellia sinensis plant, they chop it down, they dry the leaves, you can get green tea. If you roast it, you can get black tea. And then if you ferment it, you get pu'er tea. And when you ferment, you get probiotics and prebiotics. And that's where you get a lot of like the healthy microbiome, gut health kind of stuff. Like, I'm not sure if you ever took prebiotics or probiotics, but it's usually something fermented like kimchi, sauerkraut, any of those things, because they have living organisms in it that will help feed the good bacteria in your body.
Wow, you sound like a holistic medical doctor.
You know what's funny enough is actually my whole first year of college was to become a doctor. I switched my major in college to become an engineer. But,
wow.
Yeah. So I love learning about health. I love talking about anything spiritual, health, all of that stuff.
Okay. I love that. Like, because it's always needed, going back to that health is wealth. And then what made you make that shift from studying to be a doctor into like audio?
You know what's funny is I interviewed a black doctor. So they told me, they said, hey, if you want to become a doctor, you got to go find somebody who does what you want to do and interview them. And I said, bet. So I went online. I found this doctor because I wanted to study naturopathic medicine. So I found this naturopathic doctor. He was this black dude. And I was like, bet. You look like me. You do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I emailed him. I was like, yo, I want to do an interview for you. I'm studying to become a naturopathic doctor. He responded right away. He's like, bet, let's do it. So we hop on Zoom or actually it was Skype at the time or something. So we hop on a video call and we're talking and he goes, do you actually want to wake up every day and work with sick people? And I had not ever thought of that. My whole entire first year of like, I want to become a doctor. I want to telling all my counselors, everyone around me is like, yeah, he's going to become a doctor.
Yeah.
He framed it in a way I was like, dang.
One question. Wow.
I was like, dang. I was like, I do not want to wake up every morning and work with sick people. And he goes, just because you love learning about something doesn't mean you need to turn it into a career.
One more time.
Just because you love something, love learning about something, doesn't mean you need to turn it into a career. Right? I could love knitting or I could love golfing. That doesn't mean I need to turn that into my career. It could just mean something that you love learning about and that you're passionate about. It doesn't need to become your career. So the minute he said that, I was like, dang, okay, maybe I just love learning about natural medicine. And I was like, maybe I don't want to become a naturopathic doctor. And all that doubt, I think he started seeing it. And he goes, let me ask you this. What is something you could wake up and do every single day? And I was like, music.
Love it.
And he goes, because I was already making music every day at the time. I'm with my homies. We're writing raps. We're downloading beats on YouTube. We're trying to figure out how to record and all this stuff. We're doing this every day. And I'm like, dang, he's right. So I'm like, yeah, I can do music every single day. He says, do that. That was the end of that phone call. I just had this pit in my stomach. I was like, dang. So I went back to my counselor and I said, yo, switch all my classes. He goes, what do you mean? And I had 23 credits at the time. I was like, bro, switch all my classes. He's like, but we picked out a school. We had this map played out. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, bro, we got to pivot. I was like, bro, we got to pivot. I was like, sign me up for every single music class. And he was just like, are you serious? And I was like, sign me up for every single music class.
I love that.
And I was like, bet. So the next day I literally walked to the music building, and in the college I went to, it's like, you got the science department, you got the automotive, you got all these buildings. And then way off on the side is this music building because we make all this noise and it's loud. So they put us off in the cut. I remember walking through this trail to get there and I'm like, man, this place is crazy. I'm like, what? I walk in the first doors and all I hear is music coming from every direction. I hear people singing, I hear pianos, I hear saxophones, and this warm feeling in my body. I was like, this is where I need to be. I was like,
that.
This is it. And I walked in and I took one piano class and I was sold. I was like, I literally that day, I was like, I'm getting every music degree. I'd seen every music degree they offered. I was like, I'm getting all of them. My counselor was like, bet, let's do it. So I took like 23, 24 credits per quarter, vocal lessons, bass lessons, music production, audio. I took any class that they offered. I took it. I was just like, I want to learn it. And ended up about a year into that, they noticed me at the studios because the studios were ran by these managers. And the manager was like, hey, who's that kid that shows up at 7 a.m. every morning? He's like, he's here before I am. Like the boss showed up at 8. I was there before him. And then he left at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and I was still there. He goes, yo, that dude is here every single day and they're open on the weekends. I'm there literally Monday all the way back again till next Monday.
Wow.
And I'm in there like learning how, like, what is his microphone? I'm like learning how to make cable. I'm literally learning everything. And then the studio manager pulled me to the side. He goes, hey bro, you're here so much and I can clearly see you have like a deep hunger and a deep passion for all this stuff. He goes, I want to open up the work study program for you. He's like, I closed it a couple of years ago, but he's like, I just haven't seen a student this hungry. And he goes, I want to hire you on as a work study. So from that day on, I was making, I think, $12 an hour being there.
Yeah.
Because he was like, bro, you're already here every single day for like more than 10 hours. He was like, you might as well get paid to be here. And he blessed me with that job at 18. And then by the time I graduated, the work study had ended because work study is only for students.
Right.
So I graduated and he goes, hey, bro, I want to offer you a full-time position here. And I was like, bet. So, and then I ended up not taking the full-time because I had so many other gigs, but I ended up doing part-time there. And that was just a huge blessing working in those studios. And people would come to the studios and be like, hey, we need somebody for this project or whatever. I was the first person. They were like, yo, you got to get Tybo. So I did weddings, I did conferences, I did all of these things just working at that studio, and made so many connections and built a reputation in Seattle for like the tech. So you go out to Seattle and they're like, oh, you need audio? They'll probably be like, oh, get Tybo. I'm like, I don't even live there no more. So
Ooh, man, that's amazing story. So even talking about hobbies outside of music, outside of studying natural medicine, what are some of your hobbies or passions?
Bro, I got too many. Like I literally, if you come to my house, I got a 3-bedroom house. Every single room is a studio, and I'm always doing something. So like
Different types of studios.
yeah, so I got a virtual studio. I got like green screen where you can like click a button and do any backdrop, and it looks like most people when I'm on the green screen, they don't even know. Like they're like, "Bro, you got a new studio?" I'm like, click another button, it changes. They're like, "What? Wait, what just happened?" And I do 3D printing. I do laser engraving. I make jewelry. You know, like you'll see me on my story. I got a bunch of gold and silver. I melt it down. I'll play with diamonds and stuff. So I've made chains for myself. I made Cuban bracelets. I've made a bunch of rings for the shorties that I'm dating and stuff. So yeah.
Okay.
So I love jewelry. I love anything arts and craft, anything creative, honestly. Like I love cooking as well. I'll see a recipe on TikTok about, I want to try to make that. So anything creative, I'm like a real big creative person. So yeah.
Wow, I love that. Even got a chance to check out the green screen yesterday, and that's just amazing where technology is. I know green screen has been around for a long time, being in Hollywood movies and like you said, virtual setups. Like it's amazing. So for someone that wants to get into green screening, what are some equipment that they'll need?
You need lighting, good lighting. I mean, if you give me some really good lights and an iPhone, I could make some green screen footage. And really, you don't need a lot of, like back in the day, you used to need like Adobe and you need all this software. And then honestly, you got CapCut. CapCut got green screen removal.
I love CapCut.
Blink, boom. Now you put whatever you want. Now you got AI backgrounds. Like even like a year ago, I used to design. Like I used to have to go into the software and create each element and place a plant. Like I was in a 3D software creating these rooms. Now you got AI, you just prompt 60 seconds. It generates you whatever you want. And then you can revise it, you know, put my logo in the back or put this. So it's like, there's no excuses why you can't do no green screen content nowadays. It used to be the entry was like really, really high, but now it's like you can do it from, you know, cell phones and some ring lights off of Amazon.
Wow, so much to learn, and like you said, technology is advancing, so it's like no excuse at all. No excuse at all. One popular way. So, going back to them early days, starting a business, hustling, doing all of that, what did you see yourself in those moments? Like, did you see yourself in the position you are now, or do you say, someday I'm gonna make it. Someday I'm gonna make it. Someday it's gonna be this way. Like, what was your mindset?
I was one of those delusional people. Like at 12 years old, 13 years old, I'm telling all my friends, like, "Hey, bro, I'm about to get that Lambo. I'm about to get it." And everybody around me is like, "Yeah, right." Yeah, like, bro, I literally come from homelessness, from the street. Like I used to hold up signs to get money, like all of it. Like, and I'm like delusional in my mind. I'm like, no, like, bro, like I used to be like, yeah, no, I get that high rise crib. I'm about to get that car. Like, and
so you have to visualize.
Oh, absolutely. And then the thing is, like, if you read any of my like horoscope stuff, I got this birthday book. Any birthday book or horoscope that I've ever read, it always says something about manifestation. So I literally have been able to manifest anything that I've ever thought of. And what's crazy is I used to manifest like bad stuff. I used to be like, man, I hate that person. I wish something bad would happen. And then stuff would happen. I'd be like, ooh, I'm like, yo, I probably shouldn't think bad stuff. And that's why like the power of the mind is so strong. So like I only like to consume like healthy stuff. Like even my feed, like I try not to consume anything like negative or anything bad, because like those things will plant seeds in my mind and those seeds can grow. So like, yeah, no, I've always been good with manifesting. Like even what's crazy about Podcast Summit is I was getting all of these Podcast Summit ads before I even went to Podcast Summit.
Yeah.
I remember the 2 years ago, it was like ad, all on my feed. And it used to piss me off because I used to be like, bro, I've shot over 400 episodes of the podcast. I know more about podcasts than any of those people. I'm like,
yeah. And
I was like, bro, I deserve to be there. Like literally, like that's what I'm saying. And I'd never been to Podcast Summit. I'm seeing these ads. One day I get a call and it's David Shands. I answer it. He's like, hey, bro, I need somebody at Podcast Summit. Are you available? Look at God right there.
Look at God. Wow.
It's literally, I've seen the ads for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, I need to be there. I deserve to be there. Boom. I get a call from David Shans. He's asking me to be there. So it's like stuff like that, you know, like just simple manifestations of like, ooh, or even I DM'd people that I wanted to set up studios for a year ago. And now those people are hitting me up, bro, how much you cost? I'm like, bro, I'll pay you right away. Just get. So it's like,
I love that feeling.
yeah, no, exactly. Like chasing all these people, and then now these people are chasing you. So it's like, yeah.
Like you said, manifestation. Even like you said, the thoughts and the seeds, like even the words. Like even coming from a recording artist standpoint, my last track wasn't a song. It was an affirmation track, an 8-minute affirmation track called Alien Affirmations 1, 2, 3, which is like my angel number. And then Alien stems from my whole brand, my artist, Alien I Play, and then now Alienized Photos. So yeah, people are like, oh, what was your last song? It was actually an affirmation track. You know, shifting your mindset. And
My last song was Fuck 2020.
So 2020 was your last?
Yeah, that was that was the pandemic. I had a lot of feelings. Right. Yeah, exactly. I was like, yo. And I think I made it right at the end of the year. I was like, yeah, this year's been shitty. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna make a diss track to 2020. And everybody back home was like, yeah, fuck 2020.
What about your favorite song that you made?
Favorite song that I made? I would probably say anything off my first album, because here's the thing is when I first started, I was like, I put so much effort and time. I spent 1 year making my first album, and it was only 8 songs. Like, but each phase I had to go through like the beat selection, the writing, the mixing, the mastering. Like I described it as if you had to make 100 burgers, right? You wouldn't go in and just make one burger, wrap it up, make the next one, right? What you would do is you would prep. You would lay out all the buns. You put the patties on. You would lay all the tomatoes. Like you would do it all in a batch, right? So you do it more efficiently. So when I made my first album, I did it just like that. I selected all the beats. I selected all the song tracks. I went and wrote all the things. I went into the record. So each one of those was a stage. And that took a whole year to make. And I feel like that process, it just made these tracks that I'm really proud of. Anything after that, I stopped putting that effort in because I realized that music is about consumption, right? If it took me 1 year to make all the eight of these tracks and it only takes you 20 minutes to listen, I'm like, was it really worth it? And then that's when I started realizing, okay, let me get better at creating to where I can literally make a whole album in a month. And I was like, yo, I need to get better with the creativity where I can crank. It was more about, not quality over quantity. So I was trying to go, I started with quality over quantity, but then I switched. I was like, no, let's do quantity. And so then I started cranking out tracks. And I feel like that is what got me like that muscle where it's like, now, if we sit down, you play one beat right now, I could write you a track in 20 minutes, record it, mix it. Man, we can have a track done by 4 o'clock.
Okay, I got to be out there. We gone.
Exactly. No, and that's where I wanted to be. It was like, but before, like my creativity process was like, oh, now I got to select the beat. I got to get inspired to write.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to get. So I was like, no, I got to crank these out. So anything off my first album, to answer your question, my first track is called Tybo Intro. I just love that song. You know, play it anytime, and it's a vibe. But yeah.
Okay. Well, as you was explaining the process in different stages, sounds like editing, like multicam editing, post-production. So is there like a workflow you have for editing?
I taught about the production and the post. I think that the 3 Ps or the 5 Ps. I think about all production in that way. Like even I was talking about my album, I went into pre-production, then I went into production, and then I went into post-production. So if you're asking mainly about the post-production process, I feel like that is when I'm transferring everything. I'm making sure like I always use references. Like I feel like as a engineer, they taught me how to use references early on, and I transferred that into every other skill that I used.
Break that down, references.
Yeah, so when you're mixing a song, let's say you just recorded this track and you say, hey, Tybo, I want you to mix and master this track. What I'm going to ask you for is, hey, I want you to find a song that is similar to this that we can use as a reference so we know that the final product should look something like this, right? And it's the same thing if you're a photographer, I'd say.
No, wait, because you hit a key point. Something like this, not exactly, but something like this. Because I get that a lot. Like, oh, it's something like it.
No, exactly. Same with photography. Like if I'm a photographer and I'm like, hey, or if I'm a model, I'm like, hey, I want to shoot with this photographer. I'm gonna give him reference photos. I'm gonna say, hey, I like these looks. I want to go for something like this. So I always use references for everything I do, whether it's lighting, video. Like I'll look at a Diary of a CEO. I'm like, oh, is this a reference? Do you want it like this? This is moody. This is dark. This is intimate. And they're like, no, I want more light, or I want more like I want Joe Rogan, or I want this Call Me Daddy podcast, whatever. Like I use them as a reference point essentially to get the client to where they want to go.
Okay. Now, as we approach the end of this episode, I would like to hear your biggest lesson that you learned throughout your whole career.
I would say provide value and the money will come. Like that's really the biggest lesson. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to provide value. And that's before I even think about money, and I think that the people who provide the most value will never have a money problem.
I love that. That is true. What about the biggest or the greatest insight, a business insight that you learned?
You know what's crazy is I don't do this now, but somebody said that if you don't have monthly recurring revenue in your business, you don't have a real business. And I thought of that and I was just like, man, that's a really good concept, because if you think about Netflix and all of these streaming platforms, right, they have your money every month coming in, right? So as entrepreneurs and creators, like if we are starting from ground zero every month, where we have to go out and find new gigs, new clients or whatever, it's like, do you really have a real business? And I was like, dang. So that's kind of something new that I'm thinking about, is like, okay, how do I work in like that that monthly revenue where it's
that
like,
reoccurring.
like, and especially for me, like I know if I did a school community where I taught this stuff, it's like people easily would join my Patreon, my school community, whatever. And that's that monthly revenue where it's like people just every month are getting that, that value, but also paying. So
That is true. So we could see a school community or Patreon coming soon?
honestly, yeah, no, probably. I'm just so busy with this high ticket like studio stuff. It's like the energy that it takes for that. I'm like, I gotta kind of weigh out the options, but soon enough, you guys will probably see.
Well, you don't always have to be the face of it or run it. You could always like hire someone or have someone organize it, or have pre-recorded videos, and then.
But me being a passion, like I view everything like my baby. So I'm like, that's my child. Like even if you paid me like $99 a month or even $20 a month, right? You're gonna get the same treatment as my $5,000, $10,000 client, because I don't view the money as like, oh, you pay me more, I'm gonna give you more value. It's like, no, you're coming to me, you're gonna get the value no matter what. So that's why I prioritize more of the higher ticket stuff. I'm like, do I really want to do the community? But eventually I will, like what you're saying. So
Okay, no, it's nothing wrong with it. And a high ticket is definitely a good thing. My audience is creative entrepreneurs, mainly beginning creative entrepreneurs. What is one thing that you would leave them?
I already said this, but don't give up, because here's the thing. We are so quick to beat ourselves up, but really let the world do that. Like, you should be encouraging yourself. You should be uplifting yourself. So the minute I hear somebody like talking down about themselves or beating themselves up, I'm like, yo, don't do that. The world will do that for you. Whew. You need to be the one uplifting. You need to be the encouragement. You need to be the vessel, because you are the most important thing at the end of the day. Nobody's going to give you that motivation. Nobody's going to wake you up and do the things that you have to do. So, work in that internal, like, let it shine from the inside out.
I love it. And this was an amazing interview. But for someone that has a couple minutes, what is 3 to 5 takeaways you would like to share?
Give me a topic. Give me
this whole interview, even if it's something you didn't get to mention.
Audio. I want to go over audio real quick.
Okay.
Try to get your microphone as close as you can. Like if you get this microphone right here, you guys are going to hear the difference, right? It's going to be bassy. It's going to sound like I'm on the radio, versus if you just move it slightly back, like even this, the frequency response from 1 to 2 inches of movement, like it's crazy. Like you can hear it. Like if I'm like, yo, hey guys, what's up? Versus, hey guys, what's up? So try to get as close as you can to the microphone. That would be my one thing about audio. 2, I'm going to go over lighting. One thing about lighting people don't realize is every time you double your distance, you lose 75% of the power. Now, let me
double your distance, you lose 75%.
I'm going to break it down. These are going to be some numbers. You might have to show some stuff on screen, but check this out.
Yes.
If I have this light in front of me and it's at 100%, right? If I have it 4 feet away and at 100%, if I move it back 8 feet, you'd be like, oh, it went down to 50%. But really, it went down to 25%. So a lot of people don't realize the closer you have the light, the more luminance you actually get. So it's called the inverse law. It's the inverse law theory. It's like pretty much just saying every time you double a distance, you lose 75%. So try to keep your lights as close as you can, especially if you don't have a really bright light. And you can notice the distance too. Like you just move the light closer, you're like, whoa, how'd it get way more brighter? Like it's a law of like physics. So that's for that. And then video, make sure you pay attention to the skin tones. Like I see a lot of these videos, the skin tones be crazy. Be all purple or green or just like the red, or it's like, use a reference. We went over the reference photo.
Yes.
Make sure that those skin tones look like the reference photo. And if you don't have a good reference photo, use like news stations and broadcasts and like real television, because they're going to give you like the accurate skin tone, the actual colors, and you can look and be like, wait a minute, my skin looks real pale. Like why it look like it? My stuff look gray. It look like alienish, like
alien.
Exactly. I was like, got that in there. But yeah, no. So pay attention to your skin tones when it comes to video. And if you can't get like the right look, believe it or not, ChatGPT knows how to make LUTs now. So you can actually drop in an image of like, let's say a Batman movie, and you're like, hey, I want this look on this footage. It will literally make you a cube file. It'll make you a lookup table file. Like, and then you could take that lookup table and just drop it into Premiere, whatever Pro, and you can get that same exact look. So,
wow. Well, I know you mentioned something yesterday about like the background from the subject to like 10 feet minimum.
The further, the better. Like, like even if we just did a small example of this, like we would move this all the way. Like we would be up against the wall. Like I tell people, you're gonna feel uncomfortable the way I set it up. You're gonna be like up on the wall, like. But it's going to look crazy. Like, it's going to look good, like, when you actually see the final product, because you're so separated from the wall, and it just looks blurry and looks good.
Okay, so we're going to move these chairs up for the next. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of spaces you can't do that. So you got to leave room for the lights, and now you got to adjust everything. So, yeah. Yeah,
unfortunately. But what is one question that I didn't ask that I should have asked?
Honestly, I feel like you had really good questions, bro. I can't even think of anything you didn't ask. Like you had some really good questions, brother.
Or to flip it, what is one powerful question that you were asked throughout your whole lifetime?
When did you know you were special? And I'd have to say is like when I was like homeless, like in the shelters and everything. Like I remember all of the people, like even like the homeless bums and like you're around some characters in the streets, but even them, they saw this light within me, and I felt like I was like, okay, I am special, even though I'm like in these crazy predicaments and these crazy situations. I was like, I always knew, like from then, I was like, I got something special in me. So
okay, and then last question: what is legacy for you, Tybo Audio, and as a person, and then as a business entrepreneur?
People talk about like heaven and hell, right? And I think that the concept for me is like your legacy, right? When you think of a name like Bob Marley, right? You think great things,
right?
And I think that his legacy is living heavenly, right? Because people think great things of him. Versus you think of somebody like Adolf Hitler. That's like, you don't think of good stuff, right? So I think that his legacy is living in hell. Right? Like, I don't know if these places are actual places we go, but as far as your legacy, like I want to be a heavenly legacy where my legacy lives in heaven. Like people praise and talk good about me. Like I don't want anybody to be like, yeah, no, you screwed me over, you scammed me, whatever. Because that's how you get a negative legacy and your name lives in hell. So like, that's kind of how I view legacy, is like just what you're leaving behind and what people remember you for, you know?
Okay. And last and final question, where can people find you, book you, all that good stuff?
Yeah, y'all can find me at Tybo Audio on all platforms, TYBO AUDIO. And if you guys want to connect with me, you guys can just go to upgrademystudio.com or just shoot me a DM, honestly, and we can talk in there and we can get you all set up.
Yes, and make sure you don't hit that typo. It's Tybo, not like the cardio, Billy Banks. And thank you again. This is photographer Steve Jackson of Alienized Photos Media, bringing you another episode of Alienized Photos Industry Talk. You can follow me on social media at Alienized Photos, and then alienizedphotos.com if you want to book, consult, all that good stuff. Thank you again, Tybo.
My brother.
Appreciate you.
Yes,
Thank you.